Hello out there, and today's video is going to be a quick one, but it's on a topic that I think is really interesting because it's all about how when knives get updated and upgraded, even though some of the new materials are preferable to the older ones, the finishing product isn't necessarily the better piece. And a lot of times that is because of some design flaws or idiosyncrasies or compromises that have to be made in order to make a knife the way the manufacturer wants it to be made. And that kind of stuff for me is just always really, really interesting. Have you ever had a knife, just any knife that just has something odd about it? Either the jimping is off or the action is a little bit weird or there's just something about it that doesn't make sense and you can never really explain what it is. And you just wish that you were in like the production meetings where they were looking the knife over and making the decisions to do this with it or make the clip a certain way or whatever it is that's weird about the knife, and I think about that stuff all the time. I always wish that I had a little bit more information about the thought process and the design process that makes knives come out the way that they do. And I'm fortunate enough today to have the best example of one of those situations in front of me with the Benchmade Stryker line of knives. And what we have are Alan Oleshewicz designs. And the first one at the bottom here is the original. It is the nitrous Stryker. And it is number 907. This is the mini. And this was eventually upgraded with an axis lock. And this one up here is the 903 axis lock and a number of other improvements. The original is assisted opening, and so I wasn't really a big fan of the assisted opening aspect or the liner lock. When I get a Benchmade, I prefer the axis lock. But, this also has some like older style G10 and it has a one position pocket clip that's tipped down. And so Benchmade probably really liked the design and wanted to bring it into their more like current catalog. And they decided to upgrade it a few years ago, upgrade and update. They also changed the steel from D2 to 154 cm, but that's not really a big deal. I think the bigger deal is the other stuff that they did, and when you look at the knife at first glance, you can see the G10 is just a whole lot better on this new version. Better contoured, a lot better traction. It's just a nicer piece of G10. We also have a better clip. It is now tip up. It is loop over and deep carry, so that is good. There's more milling on the inside. We have the more current Benchmade thumb stud. So a lot of things are different and upgraded, but as you can see, it is still essentially the same design. But there's one thing about the new version that just always rubbed me the wrong way. And the Axis Stryker version, the reason why I never really hunted one down, even though I ended up getting one, it was never really the model for me, and it was because of the ergonomics. Now take a look at this thumb ridge or ramp that's going on right here. We have some good jimping on the liners, and then we have some good jimping on the blade, but there's a ridge in between. And so it just makes it really odd, like how am I supposed to hold the knife? Like this, or am I supposed to come over like this, or smush my thumb down and use both of the jimping at the same time? It just is really weird. And I could never really explain that. And it's the same way in the full-size version, which I also happen to have here. It's actually even worse because everything is just like proportionately larger, so the ridge is bigger and the little thumb smush that you have to do, it's not feasible. So like how are you supposed to use this jimping? It's just odd in the hand. And it was something that I could never really explain, and I wish I understood, and never really thought about that much though until I got this nitrous version in hand, and I realized that the original, the predecessor, is a lot better in hand, and the jimping is great. Look at that. You have the liner that goes straight into the ramp on the blade, and it's perfect. And so I couldn't really figure it out, and again, I noticed that, and I just thought it was weird, but I didn't put much time into thinking about it. And eventually, I just had the knives next to each other like this, and I realized that the axis lock is the problem. The axis lock is the problem that's causing this weird ridge. Because when you look at the inside of the knife, here you have on the nitrous version, you have this stop pin, which is right here. And so it's basically like right here on the scale. And you have to have a stop pin to keep the knife locked up. And sorry if I keep going in and out of focus. I'm struggling with the lighting, and that is just making this difficult. But So you have the stop pin, on the nitrous version, but if you were to put that in the same spot on this knife, it would almost overlap with the axis lock, and it would make the machining very difficult and would probably be a production nightmare. So you're putting the axis lock on this knife, and you have to figure out how to do it and where to do it, and you have to make compromises. So Benchmade wanted to get this axis striker, but they had to move the stop pin, and the best way that they could figure out to do it was to create that ugly, horrible ridge and put it up there. And so that's what they did. And that is what's causing the poor ergonomic and the misuse, I guess, of jimping, because you can't really use it properly. And so there was a compromise. And again, that's the conversation that, man, I wish I could have been there in those design meetings when they were trying to figure out the way to do this. Like, that kind of discussion and that debate is just, it's just compelling to me. And I wish I could have been privy to that. But yeah, so that's the decision that they went with. And in my opinion, it's the wrong one, because almost every aspect about this knife, when you look at it on paper, axis lock, G10, the clip, everything is improved, but the way that it fits in hand kills it. And I prefer the D2 older assisted version for that reason. I think it's more true to the spirit of the original design. And so, yeah, it just is a perfect example of Benchmade, or any company for that matter, trying to get a knife design and put their own spin on it and make it the way they want to. And you can't have everything, so you have to compromise something. And what they compromised, I think, was the wrong thing. And I would have just stuck it out without the axis lock. But that's just me, guys. But I wanted to bring this to your attention because, again, just that whole idea and the whole concept of that back and forth and those compromises is just, it's just captivating. So yeah, I wanted to discuss that today. If you have any models that are similar where you've seen something like this, definitely let me know down below. But any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know about that as well. I really appreciate you watching, and I'll talk with you soon. Have a good one.